Chase Briscoe is expected to replace Martin Truex Jr. Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. Justin Haley is expected to return to Rickwer Racing in 2025, and Kyle Busch will return to RCR in 2025. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just straighten those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Dean Thompson's 2024 Assured Partner scheme that we'll see in Nashville. Scheme's okay in my opinion, not a big fan of the colors, but it's really awesome and cool to see that Dean Thompson has a new sponsor for this weekend, or at Nashville. The next main scheme we're taking a look at is Joey Logano's 2024 Hunt Brothers scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. I actually like this more than the green one. The red one works a lot better. It looks very solid, kind of looks like the Verizon colors a little bit. I think this looks really great. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s 2024 Clean Eggs 100 Years scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. Scheme's okay in my opinion. JTG's been either hit or miss in the past with their paint schemes. I think this is okay. Hopefully we'll have a good run with this paint scheme this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Justin Allgaier's 2024 Carolina Carport scheme that I believe we're going to see at Nashville. Decent paint scheme, in my opinion. Pretty cool to see a Carolina Carport is going to be working with Justin Allgaier later this year. I think it looks solid. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack later in the year. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Todd Gilliland's 2024 Grillo's Pickle scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. Really cool to see a new pickle sponsorship coming into play. I think this looks decent in my opinion. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at New Hampshire. Next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Alex Bowman's 2024 Ally Nashville scheme that we will see at Nashville Super Speedway next weekend. I love this. Dale Jr. is the one to design it. Always when we go to Nashville, Dale Jr. designs these schemes, and this is probably the best one that we've seen Dale Jr. design. It looks absolutely amazing. The colors look incredible. It looks beautiful. I'm looking forward to seeing the racetrack at Nashville later this year. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Chase Briscoe's 2024 Zepp scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. Really glad to see that Chase Briscoe does have a new sponsor for the weekend. I think the paint scheme looks decent with the yellow and the blue. I think it looks solid overall. Looking forward to seeing the racetrack this weekend at New Hampshire. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Bubba Wallace's 2024 DraftKings scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. Really not much to say considering this is basically the same paint scheme we've had for the last few years. I think it looks solid though for sure. They've done a good job, and every time Bubba Wallace has driven this car, it has done very well. So I think he could have a good run with this paint scheme this weekend. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Preece's 2024 Mohawk Northeast scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. I think this is very solid overall, to be honest. Colors look pretty good. I like the colors. I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at New Hampshire. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Dillon's 2024 Car Bravo scheme that we'll see this weekend at New Hampshire. Honestly, I think this looks pretty good in my opinion. It don't look amazing, but it looks okay. I'm looking forward to seeing on the racetrack. Glad to see Ty Dillon be back in the Cup Series this weekend at New Hampshire. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about William Byron. As it was announced on Monday morning that William Byron will be driving for Junior Motorsports in the Cars Tour on July 3rd or 4th at Caraway Speedway in the number 24 car. This, I believe, will be the first time that William Byron has competed in the Cars Tour, but we know William Byron is a really great late model racer. I think he's almost won the Snowball Derby a couple of times. I think he's competed in that in the past and has competed in some big events as well. And I think he's going to have to be a fair for the Cars Tour. That series continues to grow, and I think William Byron will have a really great chance and a strong opportunity to go out there and win in the Cars Tour at Caraway. This is a fantastic opportunity. I think he's going to do excellent. I think he's going to run another race potentially later this year as well. HendrickCars.com is going to sponsor. I think it's pretty exciting to see that William Byron will be joining Junior Motorsports. I think he'll do an excellent job in the Cars Tour as that series continues to grow with a lot of great drivers going to that series as well. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Daniel Suarez. As Daniel Suarez is officially a U.S. citizen. He was inducted along with 50 other people into the U.S. Congratulations to Daniel Suarez. A really awesome and great feel-good story for this week. This is an amazing accomplishment. Congratulations to him. He's been working hard for a very long time to get this done, and I'm really happy for Daniel Suarez. Congratulations to him on officially becoming a U.S. citizen. This is an absolutely amazing and great story and a feel-good story for sure to talk about this week. Congratulations, Daniel Suarez, on becoming a U.S. citizen. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Tony Stewart Racing. As it was announced on Monday that Tony Stewart Racing has announced a partnership extension with Dodge. It's unclear how long the extension is, but Dodge has been a partner with Tony Stewart Racing over the course of the last few years. And of course, they've won 15 races in the NHRA since this time. This obviously is the main thing that Tony Stewart's going to be focusing on going forward. As we know, Stewart Racing is going to be shutting down at the end of the season, at least their Cup Series program is, though the Haas portion could still be around in the Xfinity Series, which could be announced in the coming weeks. It's really good to see a Dodge just continuing. Obviously, remember the rumors a few years ago that we were talking about Dodge potentially coming to NASCAR. Obviously, that did not end up happening. We know they were close to going for RFK, but at least they're sticking around in the NHRA. And it's really great to see that Tony Stewart Racing will get the chance and opportunity to still continue working with Dodge. Really awesome stuff. Glad to see this, and nonetheless pretty awesome to see that Dodge will continue working with Tony Stewart Racing going forward. Really awesome stuff overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Radioactive. As it was reported by Adam Stern on Monday that Fox and NASCAR will continue to shoot and air weekly Radioactive mini docs appearing on NASCAR's YouTube pages and Fox's social medias as well. This is absolutely amazing to hear. Obviously, with Race Hub shutting down about a week or two ago, a lot of people were really worried and concerned about the future of Radioactive. Because in my opinion, I think Radioactive has been the best part of the show over the course of the last few years. Considering Race Hub, it kind of started to go down in performance when it comes to their on-air stuff. They started going to green screen. But everything, the only thing that really remained from the original stuff was Radioactive. And I think that's been my favorite thing that's come out of Race Hub ever. You get to hear what's on the channels, among other things. And I'm glad to see that it is going to be continuing. It's been my favorite part of the show. I'm glad to see that they're at least going to be continuing on the NASCAR's page. I think Fox's NASCAR YouTube page also posting, if I'm not mistaken. So this is phenomenal and amazing to hear. Great stuff, nonetheless, and glad to see that Radioactive is going to be continuing on Fox's NASCAR social media page going forward. I love hearing the radio chatter. I love hearing the Mark Jr. snippet. James Small, obviously Mark Jr. retiring full-time racing at the end of the year. I think this is really good to see, and glad to see that Radioactive will be continuing into 2025 and beyond release. I think it's going to be continuing for the next 2 years, and I really love that they're continuing it going forward. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about AJ Allmendinger. As it was announced yesterday that AJ Allmendinger will be driving the 13 for Kaulig Racing later this year at Watkins Glen. This will mean that Kaulig Racing will have 3 entries for the event. We'll talk about the driver 16 car in just a little bit. Go Bowling is also going to be the sponsor. This makes a lot of sense. AJ Allmendinger's had a lot of success at Watkins Glen, nearly won the Cup Series race back in 2022 in the 16 car, and also won in 2014, holding up a hard-charging Marcus Ambrose. We know how strong Kaulig Racing is on the road courses. I know that the rest of the year generally has not gone well, and Kaulig's been hit or miss in their Xfinity Series program as well, but I think when it comes to road courses, it does surprise or shock me to see the performance of this 13 car, and we saw how good this 13 car was at COTA earlier this year, when AJ Allmendinger, if I'm not mistaken, finished inside the top 10. And I do expect that AJ is going to have a good chance and opportunity to compete for the victory. If they show the pace and speed that we've seen from them, I think he's got a good chance and opportunity to win. And by the way, the paint scheme looks phenomenal and incredible as well. So I'm really excited about this and glad to see that AJ Allmendinger is going to be racing at Watkins Glen. I think he's going to have a fantastic chance and opportunity to compete for the overall win. And I think he'll do a really great job with the team at Watkins Glen. Glad to see him get the chance and opportunity to drive, which I think will be his 7th or 8th race or something like that, because he ran a lot of races this year of Kaulig. We know he could be back full-time next year if Kaulig decides to be into 2 full-time entries again, but AJ will be in the 13 car at Watkins Glen. I think he'll do a really good job overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Shane Van Gisbergen. As it was officially confirmed by Bob Pockers and multiple other reporters that Shane Van Gisbergen will be in the 16 for Kaulig Racing at Watkins Glen. We already knew that SVG was going to be running Watkins Glen in the Cup Series, but we didn't know if he was going to be in the 13 car or if he was going to be in the 16. This will be the second or third to last race that Shane has scheduled in the Cup Series. He'll be running the Chicago Street Course, of course, in a couple weeks from now, where I think he's got to be the favorite for that event. But I think Shane could go here to Watkins Glen and win as well. We've seen a lot of drivers who are really strong at road courses perform very well, like Marcus Ambrose, who, of course, Shane looks up to. And Shane, of course, talks to Marcus quite a bit. And I think that Shane has a really great chance and opportunity here to win at Watkins Glen, especially since Trackhouse will be preparing this car, to my understanding. So I think that Shane will have a fantastic chance and opportunity to go out here and win. He's going to be in a top-tier car. It's going to be a great opportunity. Obviously, we know there's a good chance possibly he's going to be full-time in the Cup Series next year with Trackhouse Racing as they're looking to expand a 3-car operation. He needs as much experience as possible, but he needs more of that on ovals than he does on the road courses because he's certainly going to be a favorite and a pretty big contender when we go to Watkins Glen. I think he could sweep the weekend, though. In the Xfinity Series, he's going to have to deal with drivers like Connor Zilic making his debut. We know how great of a road course racer he is. I think Kyle Larson also is running that race again, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to have to go up against some great competition. And for the Cup Series, guys like Chase Elliott, AJ Allmendinger, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch, all those guys will be going up and competing for the win and the victory. Nonetheless, it's a great opportunity for Shane. He'll get some more experience, and I think he'll have a really great chance and opportunity to win at Watkins Glen. I'm looking forward to seeing the chance and opportunity to drive this 16 car at Watkins Glen. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Nolan Siegel. As it was announced yesterday that Nolan Siegel will be driving the 6th car for Arrow McLaren for the remainder of the 2024 season and will also run full-time in the 6th car in 2025. Nolan Siegel has been competing full-time in the Indy Next Series with H&D Motorsports, but obviously there's been rumors and speculation he was looking to go full-time in IndyCar for the remainder of the season. Christian Brooks will be driving in replacement for Nolan Siegel going forward for the rest of the year, competing USF 2000, and also will be competing in his seat for the remainder of the year, to my understanding. This is definitely really, really shocking. Now, this is a great promotion for Nolan Siegel, and it makes a lot of sense when you look at what team he drives for in the World Endurance Championship, that being United Autosport, which is owned by, you guessed it, Zach Brown. But why is this controversial? Well, the reason this is controversial is because Teo Pourchaire, a little over a month ago, announced he'd be driving the remainder of the season with Arrow McLaren in the number 6 seat. The only race he didn't run, of course, was the Indy 500. Remember, like I mentioned, it was announced he'd be driving the rest of the year in the 6. So I don't really understand what Arrow McLaren is doing here. Don't get me wrong, Nolan Siegel deserves this opportunity. Obviously, of Tony Kanaan being there too in support. I think Tony probably had a big play and role in the decision-making here. I just think this is a very controversial move. And this is not the first time that Arrow McLaren has played musical chairs with the 6 seat. Oliver Askew got let go due to concussion after having concussion during the Indy 500 in August of 2020 and lost his ride there. Felix Rosenqvist was only there for a year or two. And then, of course, he had Dave Malukas, who was supposed to go there in 2024, but missed the first 4 races due to a biking accident. You can't keep changing drivers and expect really great results. Look at Pat O'Ward. Pat O'Ward's been there for the longest, and he's been the most consistent driver because he's had a lot of experience. If you keep changing drivers on a week-by-week basis, you're, of course, not going to get great performance. What do they expect? A driver to instantly go into a ride and do very good? That is just not possible. So to me, I just don't understand why they keep changing drivers here. Because as much as I think Nolan Siegel deserves a chance and opportunity, I think he's going to excel very well because I think Nolan's a very talented driver. You can't keep changing drivers left, right, and center and expect performance right from the get-go. It's a very controversial move in my opinion. You can't keep changing drivers. Otherwise, you're not going to get great results. You can't keep changing them. And there could potentially, if Teo has like the contract to show that he was supposed to run the rest of the year, there could be some lawsuits and legal trouble coming for Arrow McLaren going forward. And those rumors, Arrow could be leaving. I know Nathan Brown has denied those rumors. We do know some rumors, speculation, they could be leaving as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. We know Nolan Siegel will be driving the 6 car for the remainder of this year and also going into next season as well. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Larson and Daniel Suarez. Now, we already talked about Daniel Suarez becoming a U.S. citizen. But during that time, he was interviewed by multiple media reporters about what happened at Iowa Speedway. So if you watched the NASCAR Cup Series race at Iowa Speedway, you saw the contact between Kyle Larson and Daniel Suarez. At the start of stage number 3, Kyle Larson was basically going 3 wide in the middle between Brad Keselowski and Suarez. Suarez got very, very loose below Kyle Larson, went up the racetrack and got into Kyle Larson and took Kyle Larson out of a chance in victory when Kyle Larson had arguably the fastest car in the race. Now, Larson did continue and went to the garage and went many laps down, but unfortunately finished 34th. Now, Daniel Suarez was being interviewed by the media yesterday, and he says that he did talk to Kyle Larson about the incident, and they actually both took blame and responsibility for the wreck. Kyle told Daniel that he basically was a little over-aggressive, going 3 wide through the middle, and Suarez also took blame for going up the racetrack as well. It's good to see that both drivers are talking, and Daniel has indicated as well that he doesn't want to take out a Chevy teammate, especially when it's one of the biggest Chevy teams like Hendrick Motorsports. You don't want to take him out. I'm glad to see that Daniel Suarez is taking some responsibility for the wreck because I think Daniel Suarez is more at fault. Yes, could have Kyle Larson backed off and not been that aggressive? For sure, there's no denying that, but Kyle Larson historically is a driver who is very, very aggressive and is going to go balls to the wall making moves. And Daniel Suarez should know that. And this is no disrespect to Suarez, but Suarez has not been up front as much as a driver like Kyle Larson. So he probably doesn't know that situation. What I think also happened was you had to transition from the repave area compared to the non-repave area, which I think unfortunately affected Suarez just a little bit. To me, I still think Daniel Suarez is more at fault for the wrecking situation because we've seen drivers going 3 wide the whole entire race, and they weren't really having issues crashing. So I think Daniel Suarez 100% is more at fault for the incident wreck than Kyle Larson. Some are going to disagree, especially Kyle Larson haters, and that's fine and understandable. And again, I'm glad to see that Suarez is taking responsibility. But to me, like I mentioned and said already, I do think that Daniel Suarez is more at fault for the wrecking incident. Do I expect anything going forward between these two? Probably not. They've already talked about it, and I think they're going to move on from the situation. But like I said, I do think that Daniel Suarez is more at fault for the wreck than Kyle Larson is. Some will disagree, and that's fine. That's your opinion. But I do think that Daniel Suarez is more at fault for the incident and wreck, to be honest with you. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Iowa TV ratings. As it was reported by Adam Stern yesterday that USA got 2.693 million viewers for the first ever NASCAR Cup race at Iowa. That is the most watched Cup event on cable since Pocono last summer. That is absolutely huge, especially with being a primetime event. Almost 2.7 million people on cable, especially USA, a network that doesn't usually get a lot of people. That is absolutely huge. And for this to be the most watched cable race since Pocono last year is honestly phenomenal and incredible. Now, there's a couple big reasons why. Number one, obviously people are really excited for NBC's portion to come back. We all know that Fox has not done a really good job broadcasting races over the course of the last few years. And I think that NBC, they weren't perfect, I'll say that, but they were so much better than what Fox has done over the last couple of years. And I think people got really tired of Fox's coverage. And to see the inaugural Iowa race hit this number, especially at a short track when generally short track races don't get big viewership, for this to be the most watched cable race of the year is honestly really great to see. And like I said, I don't think USA gets as many households as FS1. So I think this is a really huge win for NASCAR as a whole. And it was the most watched cable event of the weekend as well. I think the U.S. Open still had more viewership when it comes to that. And I do wish they would have put this race on NBC, which a lot of races are not going to be on NBC next year. But you need these ratings wins as well, especially with the fact that we're not going to be seeing as many races on main network next year. We know IndyCar is going to be going fully next year to network with Fox. But we know they're not going to see as many races there. So I think this is a huge win for NASCAR. I'm really happy to see this, and I'm glad to see that the ratings for this weekend are up as much as they are. And I really hope this continues because we're going to have a couple weeks off going forward. We've got this week in New Hampshire, which unfortunately the weather might affect that, which will hurt the TV ratings a bit. We might get the race delayed to Monday, which is very unfortunate. But at the same token, same time, I think this is a huge win, and I'm very happy to see that the Iowa TV ratings for this weekend are up. I think this is really awesome and great stuff overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Iowa Speedway once again. As there's multiple reports from Adam Stern that came out in regards to Iowa Speedway's future. According to Adam Stern, entertaining Cup debut proves Iowa Speedway deserves another shot in 2025. Then Eric Peterson commented on it as well, saying we're really hoping that we continue to be on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule going forward into the future. I'm going to be real and honest. Going into the weekend, I was a little bit skeptical about Iowa's race. Not because of the fact that I don't think Iowa's a good racetrack. When IndyCar races there and when the Xfinity Series races there, it usually puts on a great show. But we do know that the short track racing itself has not been that great. And when you do a repave, generally repave races are not that exciting. That was not the case this time around. The racing was absolutely phenomenal and amazing right from the get-go. You had a lot of side-by-side. You had a lot of comers and goers early in the race. I know near the end it kind of got stale, but you had a lot of people showing up, and the crowd looked absolutely amazing, and the energy was absolutely phenomenal. And I agree 100%. Iowa Speedway should be on the NASCAR Cup Series schedule for many years to come. If I had to make any suggestions, I think we need to do kind of like those big concerts that Hy-Vee does for IndyCar. Get big stars like Post Malone. Get big stars like your Carrie Underwoods, your Kenny Chesleys, or your Luke Bryans. Get people that are like Shabuzi or Jelly Roll, someone like that who could be part of those concerts. Because I think that can make the event bigger than it is, because we know they're trying to make Iowa as big as it is. And I think that if you keep Iowa Speedway on the schedule long term, that's what it should be. And I think we honestly should change the Action Track name from Richmond over to Iowa. We know this is kind of like a little bit of a bigger Iowa, and Rusty Wallace designed it. And I think, like I said, Iowa Speedway 1000% should be on the NASCAR Cup schedule for many years to come. It's a fantastic racetrack. The facility is amazing and incredible, and I really hope they can continue being on the schedule for many years to come, because they absolutely deserve to be on the schedule once again. I don't know why we went away from the track after 2019 or whenever we left, because I think it was a bad decision to leave. I'm glad to see that Roger Penske saved this track a few years ago, and like I mentioned, I really hope that we continue seeing Iowa Speedway on the schedule for many years to come, because it absolutely deserves to be on the schedule, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the 2025 schedule. Now, we've got a couple door bumper clear rumors that we're going to talk about on the channel regarding silly season in just a little bit. But first, let's begin by talking about this. Freddie Kraft mentioned this on the Door Bumper Clear episode, that he says that 3 races are going to be coming out of the playoffs, and 2 of them are very shocking. We already know that Atlanta Motor Speedway will not be in the playoffs in 2025 for this year. It is the opening race of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. We know next year that race is going to be on June 28th on a Saturday, and that is going to be the first race of TNT. We also know that Darlington is going to be also going back into playoffs, and the Southern 500 is going to kick off the year, along with the Coke Zero 400 for Daytona also being the final race, I believe, of the regular season once again, as that moves a little bit farther back. But I'm very intrigued to see what the other 2 are, because Freddie said that the rumors he's heard are really, really shocking. So let's talk about the 2 races that could go in. One of them I think that could potentially go into the playoffs is Gateway. Remember, it was announced about a week or 2 ago that they're moving the IndyCar race up to June 15th. I wonder if they're going to be swapping the IndyCar date with the NASCAR Cup Series day, where they move that race back to August or early September and move Gateway into the playoffs. I think it would make a lot of sense. It would be a lot cooler, because I kind of live close to the racetrack. I think it would make a lot of sense if they moved that to a little bit later in the year. I also think another track that could be potentially moving is Kansas. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas moves a little bit earlier in the year. Obviously, we're expecting that Kansas is going to have 2 dates probably on the Cup schedule next year. I know I predicted that multiple times that it wasn't going to, but I think it could move out of the playoffs and move a little earlier in the year. But it's been in the playoffs since the beginning, so I don't know. Maybe they're going to move Phoenix out of the playoffs. That could be a potential possibility. Maybe they're going to move Homestead out. I'm not entirely sure. That's what's so interesting. We know there's been rumors of also Rockingham potentially coming back. I wonder if Rockingham could potentially possibly be coming in back next year. As I know Carson Osborne kind of teased, and there's people saying they could come back in 2025. So maybe they're going to come back. Who knows at this point, right? We don't really know what the playoffs are going to be looking like. We probably don't know if the Robles even going to be back next year at this point. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the schedule, because the longer we wait for the schedule to come out, the more likely we're going to be waiting. We're expecting a schedule announcement hopefully in the coming weeks, but we still keep getting that delayed because they're supposed to release schedule a little bit early in the year. We know the Daytona 500 is going to be February 16th. It's rumored that Bowman Gray is coming back next year, though they could go to Daytona for the Clash. We know that we're going to be racing on Amazon for the Coke 600 next year, and we're going to have some big changes coming. I'm very intrigued to see what other schedule changes are coming. It's very interesting and very intriguing overall, to be honest with you. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about NASCAR silly season rumors. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, there's been a lot of rumors and speculation in regards to a lot of drivers' futures in the NASCAR Cup Series. And Door Bumper Clear talked about a few of these interesting rumors that have been going around very recently. The first big one is that they are expecting that Chase Briscoe will be driving the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2025. Chase Briscoe on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio very recently. Yesterday, Alan Cavallo reported that he says he's got multiple offers available for 2025. But many are expecting that Chase Briscoe is going to be driving the 19 next year, and that announcement is going to be coming in the next few weeks. Chase Briscoe, of course, is really highly touted as one of the best drivers in the Cup Series at the moment. I know his stats don't completely show it, but Chase Briscoe has been very solid at Stewart Racing over the last few years, and I think he'd be a really good candidate to go over there. The other reason why he's a favorite to go to the 19 at the moment is because of the sponsorship he has. He has Mahindra as a sponsor in High Point, and they're expected to be committed with Chase Briscoe going into the 2025 season. I think Chase Briscoe would do very good at Joe Gibbs Racing. You have to remember, just 5 years ago, back in 2020, or 4 years ago, I should say, he went on to win 9 races and made the championship for an Xfinity. He joined SHR when they were going under. They were starting to fall off quite a bit. Their performance started fading. 2021, Kevin Harvick, we have to remember, didn't even win a single race. So that's why I think Briscoe going over there would make a lot of sense. He's been doing a really good job at SHR over the last few years. And I think they didn't want to go and rebuild and bring someone like a Chandler Smith or like a Noah Gragson in. I think that Chase Briscoe makes a lot of sense. I think he is favored for the 19. And my expectations of Briscoe, if he does go to the 19, is I think he'll be a championship contender. He's good at a lot of tracks. I think he's going to win 4 or 5 races potentially next year. Depends on if Richard Boswell goes with him over there. Or, of course, they do bring, once again, James Small in. But I think if you're looking at the 19 seat, you probably need to go ahead and fire James Small because he's not that great of a crew chief. Another big rumor that's been coming up as of late is Justin Haley. There's apparently 3 rides that Justin Haley's been linked to for 2025. One of those is a third RFK seat. RFK Racing's been rumored to potentially be expanding in the 2025 season, but the reason I don't know if this is going to happen is because Brad Keselowski has stated recently that they need $30 million for a charter. It might have been lower with the SHR sale, but they're going to need a lot of money if they're going to get a third charter. But Brad Keselowski is a big fan of Justin Haley. Another rumor that's been coming up as of late is Justin Haley going to a third 2311 racing car. There's been a lot of drivers rumored for a third seat. Corey Haim's one of them. Riley Herbst is another rumor. You've obviously got drivers like Carl Edwards or Kurt Busch come out of retirement at some point, but you also know other drivers like Bubba Wallace are expected to sign a contract extension with 2311. Justin Haley to a third 2311 racing seat be interesting, but I don't think that's going to happen. The big one that was brought up is Justin Haley to the 21. We know that Harrison Burton is likely not returning to the number 21 car next year. He has not performed very well this year, and he said this is a make-or-break year for him. And John Wood said very recently they're planning to make some pretty big changes over at the Wood brothers. But Justin Haley very recently, in Zoom call yesterday, told the media that he has a multi-year contract with Rick Ware Racing, and he will not be leaving Rick Ware Racing in 2025. It makes a lot of sense. He's been really helping build up Rick Ware Racing. So far this year, there was a stat that I think Trey Ryan put out or somebody on Twitter that last year altogether, they only had 10 top 20 finishes across both their cars through 72 starts. In 34 starts so far this year, they've had 9 top 20 finishes. Rick Ware Racing has been improving drastically, and a big reason for that is obviously Justin Haley. Justin Haley is a very talented race car driver who always gets the best out of equipment, and why would you let him go to another team when he's been doing great? I know there's a lot of teams looking at Justin Haley as a possibility, but I don't think Justin Haley is going to leave next year. He's going to be probably sticking around. I know he confirmed it, but Justin Haley's been doing an excellent job so far this year. Another rumor that DBC brought up is Ryan Preece potentially to the Xfinity Series. Ryan Preece is expected to not be in the Cup Series in 2025. Obviously, we know that Noah Gragson is likely going to have a seat, and a couple other guys at SHR are going to have seats, but the reason it likely won't be in the Cup Series next year is, one, his performance has not been that great. I know SHR has been unfortunately holding him back this year, But the other reason is because he doesn't bring a lot of sponsorship. I know Mohawk is sponsoring this weekend. We know he's got a couple other companies like United Rentals working with him. But United Rentals is also focused with Austin Hill as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if United Rentals wants to fully focus on Austin Hill going forward. So I think he goes back to Xfinity, maybe with that Stewart Racing rumored Xfinity Series team. That would make a lot of sense, and I think he'd do an excellent job in the Xfinity Series. Some drivers are better in Xfinity and trucks than they are in Cup. I think Ryan Preece is a very talented driver, but he's been the weakest link at SHR this year so far. And there's obviously the Kyle Busch rumors. There's a lot of chatter and rumblings that Kyle Busch more than likely could leave the team, and people are saying that Kyle Busch, and he said it this weekend, that Kyle Busch could leave at the end of the year and go back to Hendrick or Joe Gibbs Racing. But also, Kyle Busch confirmed to the media that he says he's returning to Richard Childress Racing in 2025. Kyle Busch, in my opinion, is an excellent talent, and I think he'd be welcome back if they wanted to. But the problem is, you look at the teams. Hendrick, all the drivers under contract through 2026, or 25 at least, and William Byron's probably going to get an extension in the next couple years. And then JGR, we know Chase Briscoe is going to 19. Denny Hamlin's under contract through next year. Ty Gibbs isn't going anywhere. And Christopher Ball is performing extremely well. Kyle Busch did say he will return in 2025, but he also says he has a no-talk clause with anybody. And I know that Kyle Busch is frustrated, right? His performance this year has not been very, very good. But at the same token and same time, Kyle Busch has had some good runs with this team. It's either he makes a mistake or the other people on the team make mistakes. And I think Kyle Busch, it would make a lot of sense for him to stick around and stay with the RCR for a long time and try to build the program up. And if I was Richard, I don't want to have the same situation that happened with Tyler Reddick. I want to keep him around. I want him to stick around because Kyle Busch can really help build the program up. So he's probably saying RCR. He could go back in 2026 if Denny Hamlin decides to retire or go to 23XI. And maybe Kyle Busch goes to 23XI racing in the future. But right now, Kyle Busch is expected to stick around with RCR in 2025, especially with there not being a lot of options available. But there's other rumors and rumblings that we know. We know about Front Row. They're expected to have two other drivers announced here in the not-so-distant future. Many are linking Cole Custer to the 34 car for next year, and Josh Berry is being linked to the 36 car. Or if they've decided to bring the 4 car in, they could do that. A lot of people are looking at Ronnie Childress and Josh Berry and the performance they're having recently, especially, and Josh Berry just said not too long ago that they're really hoping to be together next year. And I think that Josh Berry and Ronnie Childress together makes a lot of sense. There's obviously rumors of Junior Motorsports potentially going Cup Series racing in 2025. I don't think that's happening at this point. I know that they're looking to get a charter, but they need a lot of money. They could invest in a charter, maybe work with JTG Doherty on that front, but I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, Trackhouse, they've got a dilemma. They got to figure out who's going to be in that third car because with the grandfather clause coming in with the new charter deal potentially, they're only going to allow 3 teams unless they just do decide to have 4 cars next year where they could be grandfathered in. And Front Row could also be grandfathered in where they have 4 cars. I think that SVG, though, gets the 3rd seat and Zane Smith goes to a colleague seat next year. I think that's where Zane Smith is going to end up. And then long term, you got to look at Connor Zilic, right? Connor Zilic under contract with Trackhouse, and he's probably not too far away from going Cup racing. I think he's probably going to end up at Junior Motorsports in some sort of capacity next year. If RFK decides to expand, who do they get for their 3rd car? Maybe Matt DiBenedetto, maybe Haley Deegan. Those could be potential possibilities. What happens to the SHR Xfinity program? Could Haley Deegan go over there next year? That could certainly be a possibility. And there's other drivers that are rumored to move up. Chandler Smith, Riley Herbst. We know Corey Heim to that 3rd 23XI racing seat. We know you've also got rumors of Noah Gragson as well, potentially moving over to Richard Childress Racing next year. There's rumors they could be getting a 3rd charter going into the 2025 season. Ambassador Shops is expected to be very committed to Noah Gragson going forward. So I think Noah Gragson is potentially headed over to RCR. I think he'd do an excellent job over there next year. And unless Noah goes to Front Row, there's a lot of teams looking at Noah Gragson. But Noah Gragson, I think, is a candidate also for Richard Childress Racing going into the 2025 season. We know a lot of drivers are expected to be on the move in the coming months and the coming weeks. And it's going to be very interesting to see how things play out going forward. I think silly season is going to be wild and really crazy as we get closer to the rest of the year. And I think a lot of big announcements are not that far away from being announced here really, really soon. So, that is going to be today's NASCAR news and motorsports news video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, and if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me to Facebook and Instagram, and support on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's video. How do you think Chase Briscoe is going to do at JGR next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Kyle Busch returning to RCR? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Later today on the channel, we're going to have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race picks for New Hampshire. Then on Sunday, we'll have Cup Series race picks for New Hampshire, on Thursday, I should say. And then, of course, we'll have the paint skin video dropping as well. Got a ton of great content dropping over the course of the next couple weeks that I cannot wait for you guys to check out. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content, other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.